You are live, Cali X Boxing 2.0. We are over here on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit the sub button, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section. Let us know who is rolling through. OJ22 is already in the building. Shout out OJ22. Hit the like button as you come in, and most of you will be watching in the archive. Definitely appreciate the archive views that have been coming through. Make sure you are leaving comments below, even if they're negative comments. I had a negative comment yesterday, and the dude was right to check me because he fact-checked me. I was wrong about something. Ryan Garcia actually fought twice this calendar year instead of once. I said, I apologize. He fought twice. My apologies. Got it wrong. And he said, respect. And that's what happens here. We admit to when we're wrong. We're occasionally wrong, and it happens. Okay, so leave your comments below. You disagree with something I say, you agree with something I say, appreciate that, but make sure you're hitting the subs and the alerts. What's happening? CY, what's happening? Mad Chad Sports Tavern in the building. Javier Avilla in the building as well. Saludos to you and everybody who's been coming through, everybody who's been hitting me up in the chat, everybody who's been hitting me up on Twitter. The Twitter growth and engagement has been great. Been great. BLK, the new PBC. Oh, we're going to get into that. How does BLK Prime have 10 million guarantee for Crawford? Never heard of them before. And this seems to be the sentiment out there. And I'm going to touch on some of that. We're going to pause. We're going to touch on it because a lot of us have those same questions. And I'm just going to tell you how I feel about it. Everybody can feel however they want about it. Like I said, I'm a fan talking to other boxing fans about how we can further our growth and our reach as boxing fans. So I'll just tell you how I feel about it, where I'm at with it, in my headspace when it comes to BLK Prime and what they've got going on. And you can do what you want with that and then make up your own mind. As Dwyer says, I think he says something to the effect of, I'm just the dude on the internet. Have your own opinion on it. That's just how I feel. I'm just the dude on the internet, so just a boxing fan, so you can have your own thoughts on this. I'm going to give mine. BLK Prime signing AB for 3 fights in a year. Imagine that. And if BLK Prime can get dudes more active, sign me up. A lot is being said about these guys have their arrest records for narcotics. I'm on record. I don't care about any of that. I don't care who's funding the fights as long as the fights are finding their way on my TV. Kinahan, I don't care if Kinahan has 80 bodies. He's funding the fights on the TV. As far as the boxing world, give me more of that. And the same thing here. If these dudes have arrest records, I don't care. I don't care about the arrest records. If they're getting fighters more active, sign me up for BLK Prime and I'll be on board. But I have my reservations, and my instincts tell me that something could be off here, and we'll touch on that. And yesterday was interesting because I'm watching Twitter, and then Twitter's like, oh, they're about to sign somebody. I was like, oh, okay, they're about to sign somebody. Let's see who this is. And I'm watching it, and AB pops up on the screen. And when AB pops up on the screen, the guy who is doing the filming is being told by somebody else to stop filming the iPhone and film AB speaking. Okay. And then you look at and a couple of guys pointed this out already. You look at the background, and the background's all wrinkled and stuff. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, oh man, this looks low budget. It looked like, remember Osama bin Laden when he would do his videos from the cave with the VHS camcorder? Somebody's filming him, and he's talking trash to all the other world leaders from the cave. It sort of looked like that. It had that effect. It had the effect of, it reminded me of, like, were they doing this in a Home Depot break room? Like it seemed like AB was signing a deal, doing a press conference on his lunch break. It seemed like AB is doing a press conference, waiting for the manager to come out of the manager break room, so AB can ask him for PTO hours, big PTO approval for his Thanksgiving and Christmas. This is how this came off, low budget. So, just a dude on the internet, a boxing fan. What I'd like to see is this. We don't want the low budget effects. We don't want the Blair Witch Project stuff going on. You're going to have to improve the value of the film work, and you're gonna have to get an entertaining personality on there to interview these fighters, so on and so on and so on, if you're gonna have some success with this venture that they have going on. A lot is being made about them offering Crawford $10 million. Apparently, this deal they're offering Adrian Broner is 8-figure deal, 3-fight deal for 2023. And once again, getting Adrian Broner to fight 3 times in a calendar year. Good luck. Good luck. I hope they pull it off. So everybody is naturally asking the question, where does this money come from? How is it sustainable? Now, the thing with the boxing world is this. The big headwind you have coming into the boxing world as someone who's trying to make money in the boxing world is you have to, at the beginning, throw a bunch of money at fighters. And the first crop of fighters that you're going to throw money at is the ones who feel like they're undervalued and underappreciated. So naturally, you're likely going to be overpaying guys at the very beginning, right? And that's the issue. That's the headwind you're going into, because how is that sustainable? How are you going to be able to sustain paying guys like Broner 8 figures, Crawford 8 figures, and then whoever else they got? I hear they got Boo Boo Andrade coming in. How are you going to pay Boo Boo Andrade 8 figures? And then the guys coming in after that are going to expect 8 figures. And this is the issue we already have in boxing. And that's where I start to have my reservations about this. Is this just seems like the same of what we've seen before, right? And the boxing business is tough to make money, and it's tough to find sustainability in the boxing market, in the boxing business, because we've seen this from music moguls before, right? Triller, where'd Triller go? They're gone. SMS, 50 Cent. 50 Cent thought he was going to come on, come from the ceiling down and do a performance as Gamboa is walking in the ring, and everybody's going to say, oh, this is the greatest thing ever, and he's going to make money hand over fist. It didn't happen. It wasn't sustainable. 50 Cent is out of the business. 50 Cent thought he can come and make a move on Floyd Mayweather and pull him away from Al Heyman, which is what the 50 Cent and Floyd Mayweather beef was about originally, and it didn't work. 50 Cent is gone out of the boxing business. Dame Dash. People don't remember the Bella Dame co-promotion, right? Remember Dame Dash signing J. Don Condrington, Contender finale? Dame Dash, gone. Gone. What happened to Rock Nation? Rock Nation signs Cotto to a $40-45 million deal. They have to pay him a $7.5 million buyout to get out of the contract. Gone. Gone. It's tough. The track record isn't good. It's going to be tough for BLK Prime, especially in the current market we're in. And I'll touch on the current market in a minute. They'll probably put all their shows on pay-per-view so they can get, and that's the model. That's the model here, right? They have their own app, and they're going to put everything behind an added paywall, and that just doesn't work. And it goes back to what I'm talking about is the current market in 2022 is simplicity, 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 simplicity. Gary Vee talks about why you can't name the top 5 baseball players, or why if they walked in the room, you wouldn't recognize them. Is because baseball has put everything behind a paywall. They went in the opposite direction of where they needed to go. Football has simplified. Basketball has simplified. And they're winning. UFC has simplified. They're winning. Simplicity versus complexity. And if you're putting everything behind an added paywall, if you have to go to an obscure app to find it, good luck. Good luck. Good luck making your money back on all these fighters and all these events. And I want to be excited about this. I love the fact I naturally gravitate towards disruptors, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from. I'm well aware that somebody involved with this has said disparaging things about me in the past. I don't care. I wish for his success in this venture. I can compartmentalize all that. I don't care where it comes from. I'm naturally gravitate towards the disruptors. I hope they have success. I cheer for the underdogs. I hope they have success. I hope BLK Prime has success. But if this model goes against me getting good fights, if this model goes against me as a boxing fan, I can't support it long term. I just can't. So my instincts tell me, give it a chance. My instincts also tell me that this doesn't look sustainable, is what my instincts tell me. And my instincts also tell me as a boxing fan that all of this shows me that we're in for some hard times as boxing fans. And I think people are a bit naive as to where we are and where we're headed as boxing fans. 2022 fourth quarter, second half really has been a little disappointing, very negative. It hasn't been good. And I don't think 2023 is going to be much better. Now, first quarter 2023, I think, has some promise, because I think people are going to try to come out with a bang. But then as the money starts to dwindle in the 2023 budget, we're going to be down to more of the same in the second half of 2023. And I think it's going to. Salute to my guy, Nando. We just seen Wilder do 75,000 pay-per-view, BLK do worse on pay-per-view. And that's the thing, is the pay-per-view market has dried up. It's dried up. And by the way, all of these people who said they were going to support Deontay Wilder is still the king, Deontay Wilder is this, Deontay Wilder is that, 75,000 pay-per-view just ain't it. If we judge people for arrest records, half the fighters and promoters in boxing would disappear overnight. And that's my thing. Like, I don't care about that. I don't. And as somebody who believes in this, second chances, third chances, I believe in them. I believe in felons coming out of jail and making things out of themselves and getting rehabilitated while they're in there. I believe in all of that. So somebody messes up in the past and they want to make something out of themselves, I support it, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from. But also, as a boxing fan, I'm libertarian to all of that, because I don't care who's funding the fights as long as the fights show up on my TV. Just a boxing fan. Finally, people got around to subbing. Keep growing the community, bro. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Made the last Don King show look modern. Black Prime is the NWO of boxing. BLK equals Titanic. And this is the thing, like, people are going to have all kind of opinions on all of this. What I'm hearing on the back channels is BLK Prime has more coming. BLK Prime is going to sign guys like possibly a Boo Boo Andre. They're going to sign other named fighters that you recognize that have been on the top level. And that's the key thing, that they've been on the top level. May not still be there. And my thing is, I believe in possibly BLK Prime moving to that second part of the venture, to where they could possibly have success when they're signing fighters that are prime, close to their prime, when they're plucking fighters away from other promotional companies that actually are meaningful in the sport. Because when an Adrian Broner is signed, I say to myself, what did Adrian Broner's last Showtime show do? It didn't do good numbers. It just didn't. And that was part of the issue with Adrian Broner and the PBC, right? And why the PBC was likely happy to get rid of him, if we're being honest. Because the overhead that came along with Adrian Broner at this point didn't match the good that you were going to get from Adrian Broner as a return. Just didn't match it anymore. So I think PBC likely saw this and said, take him. If I'm being honest, take him. Take him off our hands. He's tough to deal with. We don't want to pay him that much anymore. There's a reason why PBC injuries are mounting, illnesses, mental illnesses, is because what the fight was going to bring in wasn't going to match the overhead. And I truly believe, and I understand I'm going to be accused of disparaging people in saying this, I truly believe that the Broner fight could have went ahead. And it didn't. And I think that was due to money. I think they were happy to get rid of Adrian Broner. I'm just reading between the lines. The Zone didn't kill pay-per-view. The PBC did. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the thing, Nando, is simplicity, complexity. UFC is dealing with a lot of the headwinds that boxing is when it comes to pay-per-views, piracy, all of this stuff. UFC is still putting on 12 pay-per-views per year. But the pay-per-views they're putting on are a higher quality, and UFC has done a great job. And I've noticed this, and it took me a while to notice it because I've been to UFC pay-per-views. All of my neighbors and family members watch the UFC, so I'm there and I'm watching, and they feel like they're at an event. UFC has done a great job at promoting their fights as events, as opposed to boxing is more so promoting them as fights. I was at a Christmas party in the neighborhood last year, about 40 people there. Lomachenko fought that night. He was fighting Comey, and Poirier was fighting on the main fight of the UFC. And we ordered the fight for the neighborhood party, and everybody gravitated towards the UFC card instead of the Lomachenko fight, because the Lomachenko fight gave off vibes that you're at a boxing match, whereas the Poirier fight gave off vibes that you were at an event. I noticed that. I noticed it. They do a great job at promoting their events as events. And as Dana White has said, we don't treat our events as going out of business sales. We don't, like boxing does. So it's frustrating. And when I look at BLK Prime's model, it seems like a PBC model, right? What did PBC do when they first came in, when Al Heyman first came in? Because Al Heyman was just a manager. Al Heyman wanted to be more than a manager without being a promoter. So what did he do? He got Richard Schaefer over, and they started to try to purge Golden Boy fighters and get them over to the PBC. They take Richard Schaefer off, and they're doing this as Oscar is coking up, as he's wearing fishnets, and people are starting to tap Oscar on the shoulder like, dude, they're taking all your fighters. You might want to pay attention. You might want to sober up and pay attention to what's going on. Oscar sobers up. Oscar sues them for $60 million. Al Heyman does a great job of bringing Richard Schaefer on board, purging Golden Boy, and at the same time, getting Steven Espinoza, the Weasel, on board to have all of their fights exclusively on Showtime. He built the team there. And the model was, we're going to have our own league over here. And I explained this a decade ago on the channel when people weren't really picking up on it. We're going to build our own league here, much like the UFC. We're going to use the UFC model. We're going to build a huge roster of fighters, exclusive deals with networks. We're going to try to get it back on network TV. And in order to do that, what did they have to do? They had to build their fighters up by beating guys like, for example, Danny Garcia fighting a Rod Salka, something like that. And I remember watching this go on, and I'm watching Kid Chocolate turn down a $1.4 million title, where it was an easy title shot where he would have made 1.4 million. I'm scratching my head and I was like, how is this sustainable? How is this sustainable? Why is he turning down a title shot for 1.4 million? Why is that happening? And my first video in 2010 on YouTube was, and this didn't have anything to do with the PBC, but it was Andre Berto making 1.1 million to fight Freddie Hernandez in front of an empty ballroom. How is that sustainable? How is it sustainable? That was my very first video on here. And I talked about how I went to Biloxi, Mississippi and watched Andre Berto fight Luis Collazo, a Haitian American from Florida, fighting a Puerto Rican American from New York, and it's in Biloxi, Mississippi. And I'm sitting a row behind Lou DiBella, and I got comped for a free hotel room and a free ticket ringside, sitting right behind Lou DiBella and sitting right next to Jadon Condrington. How is this sustainable? And I know what Andre Berto was making for the fight. And I'm like, how are they making money off of this? And on top of that, they're not properly promoting their fighters because they're not putting the fights where they belong, and they're not building long-term. They're taking the biggest site fee at the expense of long-term growth of their fighter. So I'm looking at this and saying, this is all broken. It's eventually going to collapse. This is all broken. But UFC comes in with PBC comes in with the UFC model. that we're going to purge other rosters, build this huge roster, promise all of these fighters the world coming in, and we're going to get big time investment money from investors. I'm not even going to use my own money as Al Heyman. I'm getting investment money, big time investment money backed. And we'll put this on network TV, and I'm going to try to build all of these fighters into eventual stars. And I'm thinking, okay, we'll see how this goes. And you have to build stars. And this is another alarm that I'm trying to sound, is people are pointing towards great fighters, current great young fighters, but I'm like, where's the star? Because in order to have a sustainable sport, a sport that people are drawn to, a sport that can thrive, you need stars. All sports are star-driven sports. Look at the NBA, star-driven. NFL, star-driven. Why has Major League Baseball had issues? Because they put too much of this behind the paywall, and we no longer know who the big stars are in baseball. I know Judge, but who else do I know? Nobody really. And I used to be an avid baseball fan. I just don't know anymore. And the same thing has happened with boxing, paywall, paywall, paywall. So the PBC model was, we're going to put this on network TV, free boxing for all, and we're not going to go to pay-per-view. We're not going to put it behind. We're going to try to build stars here. So what happens? Mismatch, 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 mismatch. High minimum, high minimum, high minimum, high minimum. They're promising every fighter in the world. Fighters aren't active as they used to be. They have so big of a roster with so few dates that fighters become more inactive, and they're not building that organic base that they used to build in boxing. So we're in 2022. PBC has blown through 950 million from what I understand. Every investor who has dealt with the PBC has lost a ton of money. Fighters are lined up at the tarmac in fourth quarter 2022, waiting for their call to fight in January 2023 because they don't have the dates. They've blown through CBS, NBC, Fox, and soon to be Showtime. So where are they going ahead? So when I see a smaller company come into the boxing business and it looks like they're going to try to do the same model of overpaying fighters in order to come and purge other promotional companies' rosters, try to get them over to their side. But at the same time, they're not going to put it on network TV. They're going to put it behind a paywall on the app. I say, good luck. Good luck. Good luck to you. I hope you're successful. And look, if the new wave is going to be crowdfunding fights, fans getting together and crowdfunding fights, I'm all aboard. I have liquid. I'm liquid. I have liquid. You know, if you want to pitch to me a business model, I'm all aboard. I'll help you in crowdfunding fights, but it has to be a long-term sustainable model. And I don't know if this is it, but good luck. Good luck. And the content has to get better, because from the press conference that I watched yesterday, it's got to get better. It's got to get better. When you have a dude at the very beginning of the press conference, and the press conference doesn't start for 37 minutes on the live because the dude keeps coming on every couple minutes and saying, let's get to 1,000 likes. Let's get to 1,000 likes. I can't believe y'all aren't liking this. Get to 1,000 likes. Get to 1,000 likes. It's not a good look. That doesn't look professional. They have to get better personalities in order to push this. They've got to get people who are a little bit more, I don't know, polished and entertaining to push this to the market, because the market gets bored quickly in 2022. Simple, 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 simple. I own businesses. I know people get bored with it quick. You have to sell them something simple. Have to. It's got to be simple. It's got to cut directly through. Complex, you lose them. And I don't know, man. Good luck to them. But I do hear there are more signings coming. And when I wake up and I say, okay, it's time to pay attention to BLK Prime, is when they start to sign fighters who are a little closer to their prime than an Adrian Broner. Instead of overpaying guys with a name who are on the tail end, I want to see him sign fighters in their prime, fighters who are early on in their career, recognize some talent. There's a reason that Top Rank has been sustainable. And you can say what you want about Bob Arum being 96 years old. He's on his way out. Bob Arum has a succession plan. I can guarantee you that. And Bob Arum still is the best in the business with the farm system. He's the best in the business at recognizing young talent. Look at the young talent he has on his roster. And he still has a good footing in the business. He has a sustainable model because he has young talent that he's going to bring up. And he's positioned well for the next decade, the next 15 years, because he has a sustainable model. And look, I have my beefs with Top Rank as well. They're still not keeping their fighters active enough. They're still not giving us some of the fights that we want to see. They're still getting in the way. They're still giving us issues with cross promotion. So I'm not going to get on here and cap for Top Rank. I'm just saying you got to give credit where it's due. The farm system of Top Rank is still top notch. And Trust Fund Eddie, the same. I've criticized Trust Fund Eddie on here, Matchroom, but what Matchroom has done well is they position themselves well as a global leader in the boxing world. They came on and recognized, and somebody with a wrench, please get rid of the sex chat stuff. I'm pretty sure some of y'all have some wrenches in there. If not, I'll get some of y'all to do it. And some of y'all might have done that already. But Trust Fund Eddie has done a good job of positioning himself as a global leader in boxing. He was the first to recognize that the American market is dwindling, but the market elsewhere is doing okay. So we can put on big events in the UK. We can go to Mexico and put a small fight, a smaller card, lower weight class guys in a Mexican bull ring. They can put Japanese fighters on as well. Kayaguchi fighting next Tuesday on DAZN. So they give you the best of a lot of different markets. They were the first. I mean, for all you people into female boxing, thank Eddie Hearn for that. Eddie Hearn has done the best at growing that, handing it off to other promoters, by the way, as well, but growing that market as well. He's done a great job at recognizing it's a universal model. He's positioned himself well for the future. Now, whether he can keep his deal with DAZN or not, we'll see. We'll see. But what I'm saying is he's positioned himself well in the global market for the future. He recognizes that you need stars, Anthony Joshua, Canelo Alvarez, but you also need to put on the fights for the hardcore boxing fans as well. So Eddie has done a good job at that. And let me see. Let me get to some of these, man. I get in my train of thoughts, and my apologies for not getting to these chats like I should. Remy in the building. Appreciate you swinging through, Remy, as always. And I appreciate the dudes who come along every day. Remy, Nando, Chicano comes through. All you guys that come through, JC, every day, appreciate you. Like I said, I'm just a dude on here talking boxing with other boxing fans. That's all it is. I'm just controlling the dialogue, but we just all talk together. DAZN and Top Rank killing the game. Isaac Bermudez. Heard some ridiculous excuses, but my favorite is that the fans don't buy the Wilder fight because they went to see it live. Yeah, there's 75,000 of them go see it live, and it would have been 150. BLK, True School Sports, and True School Sports kills the game too, man. I watch his videos. That dude's killing the game. One of my favorites on here. And a lot of dudes don't know that I'm watching because I just click on the videos and I'm always busy with my kids. My kids are just running all over, so I don't have time to comment and stuff like that. But I watch all True School Sports' content on here. Him, guys like D-Style, guys like Ring IQ, Boxing Wave, all those dudes. I watch all their content all the time. UFC has smashed the PBC. And look, here's the thing, Hawker, that the UFC has an issue with. And it's not all peaches and rainbows with the UFC. UFC has built such a huge roster of fights with only a certain budget, only a certain amount of dates, that they can't keep their top fighters happy either. Their top fighters are fighting once per year. Like I said, I don't think I've seen Dustin Poirier fight since last December. I think he has something coming up, but I'm not sure. I'm not a UFC fan, so I don't know, but I attend some of these UFC parties in my neighborhood, so I kind of notice. And they have a problem with keeping their top fighters happy with dates. Same issue with the PBC. PBC is having an issue keeping their fighters happy with dates. Jamal Charlo has a back injury. A week later, he's in the club dancing on IG Live. And I'm saying, man, that back injury looks terrible. And he's still here, October, still somehow has a belt, still somehow hasn't been stripped, and still no fight date. What is the PBC doing over there? What are they doing? Saludos to you, Impala. What's the PBC doing over there? What are they doing? So a BLK Prime gets some traction. They're able to get some fighters. Why? Because there's a vacuum that has been created by the power brokers in boxing by not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're just not. They're not delivering the proper fights to the fight fans, and they're lying about why they're not doing it. Spence versus Crawford is the greatest current example of that. For years, we heard Spence has to consolidate the belts, and then we'll get to Crawford. Now it's time to get to Crawford, and they don't get to Crawford. We were told that Crawford has to cross the street. Why does Crawford have to cross the street? I kept asking myself, why does Crawford have to cross the street? Why can't y'all meet in the middle of the street? No traffic, just meet in the middle of the street. Have them fight there. No, we can't do that. We can't cross promote. You can't cross promote. No, you don't want to cross promote. And why don't you want to cross promote? Because you don't believe that Errol Spence can beat Bud Crawford. That's it. That's it. They're going to try to brainwash you into thinking otherwise. They're going to try to brainwash you into thinking that that fight was too complex to make, too many obstacles, but there wasn't. Those were invisible obstacles. There was no obstacle between this side of the street and that side of the street. There just wasn't. As Nando has pointed out to me, as I pointed out to other people, in a lot of cases, it's actually easier to cross promote because in that case, Al can guarantee Errol his money. Bob can guarantee Bud his money. Less risk involved. Get the fight done. Get the fight done. But they're going to lie to you and tell you it can't happen because the promoter issue, the network issue, you know, USADA versus VADA, all this stuff. But those aren't obstacles. They're just not. They're just not. I don't believe you. I don't. I think all of these fights are easy to make if they want to make the fights. And in that case, I'll always believe Al never thought that Errol could beat Bud. I'll always believe that. That's why this fight hasn't happened, even though it should be a trilogy by now. It should be a trilogy. But in a lot of cases, it's easier to cross-promote. Very easy to cross-promote, and it's actually more beneficial to cross-promote because each side can take on their own part of the budget, their own overhead. They can come together, less risk involved. They can promote it together and make the fight happen. But in a lot of cases, it's this promoter doesn't believe that his fighter can beat this fighter, so it's not beneficial for me over here. That's what it is. And then they don't want to come out and admit that for obvious reasons. So they're gonna say, they're gonna brainwash the boxing fan into saying, you don't see what's happening in the boardroom. You don't see what happens in negotiations. That's why Al Heyman will come out here and wheel out the weasel, Steven Espinoza, to come on these interviews and say, oh, I saw the contract, and the contract was nothing out of the ordinary. And, you know, people need to understand these things are delicate. They're very delicate. Oh, my God, they're very delicate. You just don't understand what we're dealing with here. Oh, woe is me. It's so terrible as a boxing promoter and a network exec. Oh, my God. It's just not true. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Nope. Make the fights. UFC champions are active. I'll take your word for it. I'm not a UFC fan, but from what I've heard from other UFC fans is they have trouble keeping some of their fighters or a lot of their fighters on the elite level active due to the amount of dates that are there in the budget. So But that's another topic. Every time Al Heyman lets his boys cross the street, they catch an ass beating. And I saw a stat earlier in the week that the PBC roster in cross promotion fights isn't doing well. They have a losing record by far. So PBC released the dog doo-doo numbers to distract the sheeple from the failed negotiations. And I think there's legs to that because once again, stuff I don't want to say, but you don't get the truth about certain things unless Al greenlights the truth being put out there. I think we all know that at this point. Transparency. So the vacuum was created by promoters, network exec, power brokers is not doing their job for a company like BLK Prime to even have the opportunity to pluck off top name fighters and have the opportunity to possibly make some noise in the boxing world in the future. Once again, I have my doubts. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. That's my official position. I have serious doubts as to if this can go somewhere long term. I support disruptors, but at the same time, I know every alphabet organization starts off with good intentions until it's not, until it's corrupted. And I think the same thing happens here, but I got to give Nando credit again. Nando has pointed this out on Twitter is we've really built a more benevolent UFC model in boxing. There's nothing like, I don't have an issue with the 4-belt system. WBA, WBO, IBF, WBC. I don't have an issue with multiple promoters. For all these people saying we need to centralize, be careful what you wish for, because if the centralized system starts to fail you, then you have nowhere else to go and they become even more powerful. But we have multiple promotional companies involved in boxing and it could work. It creates competition. You have multiple networks involved. The networks go back to not having restrictive deals with certain promoters, promotional companies. All this can work. The competition can work to deliver us better fights than a centralized body could do. It would be a good system if it wasn't so corrupted at this point. If the promotional companies would do what they're supposed to do, what they're designed to do, cross promote, make the fights that need to be made. And in the long run, it's beneficial to everybody. Rising tide lifts all boats, all ships. It would be beneficial to somebody. But the issue is, like I said, the promotional companies don't want to sacrifice a possible star early on at the expense of another promoter's possible star. And what I'm saying is that they just put on the fights, then you would have multiple stars within every promotional company if they just trusted the process and put on the fights. Same thing with the 4-belt system. Oh, we need to get rid of the belts. We need to get rid of the belts. And by the way, the PBC said they were going to get rid of the belts. We're not going to promote WBA, WBC, WBA, WBO, IBF. We're not going to promote them. We're going to have a single PBC belt. That never happened. Never happened. But if the 4-belt system worked the way it's supposed to work, the way that it was designed to work, then we'd be getting the fights we deserved, and the 4-belt system would be fine. The 4-belt system is there for a reason. Universal sport. Each belt, each sanctioning body has an inherited bias towards a certain part of the world, certain nationalities. They're headquartered certain places. They're all biased towards fighters from a certain part of the world. All that's fine. All that's fine. It actually works as long as the model is there in order to make it sustainable when the fighters become undisputed, sustainable to defend those belts, sustainable to unify, unifications over mandatories, over defenses, and the defenses have to make sense. The rankings have to make sense. And they just don't, because they've been corrupted. And it's the same thing with the promotional companies. And like I said, every alphabet organization, it's outside of boxing as well. They all start off with good intentions until they're corrupted. It doesn't matter if it's centralized, decentralized, they're all going to be corrupted at some point as they grow. And I think this is where we're at with BLK Prime too. If they do have success, it'll be something to cheer for at the beginning, and then it'll be something that we're going to be loathing that we supported. So, at this point, I'm just going to be indifferent on it. That's what my instincts tell me. I saw reports on Al Heyman having $300 million, but not knowing that money was part of the old court lawsuit. And that's something I'm not going to be able to speak on, Remy, because I don't know. But what I do know, and I appreciate the super chat and appreciate the support as always. But what I do know is I've been hearing for years and years and years that PBC is on the way out. Golden Boy is not sustainable. And guess what? They all stick around like cockroaches. And so once again, my instincts tell me to be reserved on this, indifferent. I don't know if the PBC is going to be going out the door. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the landscape's going to be a year from now. But what I'm telling you is when I start to see some of the things I'm seeing in this fourth quarter, it's not all peaches and rainbows and unicorns over in PBC land. It seems to me that some fighters are trying to send out like Morse code that we're not happy with our deals, but they're contractually obligated to not say those things in the PBC contract. They're not happy with the inactivity. They're not happy that they can't get the dates that they want. They're not happy that they can't get the fights that they want. I'm starting to believe that Benavidez really does want the Caleb Plant fight, really does want to fight Morrell Jr., really does want to fight Charlo, and Charlo doesn't mind doing that either, but they're being held back. They're being held back. But at the same time, I see that, and I say that, and then I see Benavidez Jr. sign a multi-fight extension with PBC, and I say, so much for that. So much for that. I want to believe that the fighters really want the fights, but we need to start seeing them come out and prove that. We need to see them come out and complain as much as the boxing fans are that this model is broken, but they're too busy benefiting from it. Higher minimums, less risk, and that's where we are, why we are where we are. Appreciate that super chat, Remy. I just can't speak on that, man. I don't know anything about the 300 million, the lawsuit. I'm sure there are other guys on YouTube who do know. I just don't know that single PBC belt. That's what they wanted. That's what they wanted. It's going to be full circle with two big networks, the Zone versus Top Rank, ESPN. It's only a matter of time at this point. Calix, great fights, make great fighters, not that careful, nurtured. Oh, and that's the thing. Like we're very forgiving as boxing fans. And look, forget the dudes on Twitter who are gonna, the flawless victory syndrome, a loss is the end of the world. That's the minority. They're the loudest, but it's the minority. I think that the boxing fan, as long as the fighters are fighting the fights, win or lose, they're going to get the respect at the end of the day. They're going to get the respect at the end of the day. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, the boxing gods are going to be favorable for them and are going to hand them their flowers. I'll buy BLK Prime once I see 50-50 in there until yawn. And that's fair. That's fair. Even Raid can't kill Al Heyman in the PBC. I want to screen share something to y'all. Bear with me right here. Bear with me for a second. Let me try to get this. Up. Screen share. Let me see. Where is it? Copy box. And let me know if y'all can see this in the chat, if y'all can really see it. And I think we're good. I think y'all can see that. These are CompuBox stats. And the reason I bring this up is the Lomachenko, Haney stuff, the beef there. Lomachenko, why is he a top 10 pound for pound fighter? And by the way, I don't have Lomachenko in my top 12 pound for pound. I have Haney in mine. But I very much understand the Lomachenko top 10 pound for pound argument. And this actually swayed me a little bit as I've seen it. First of all, there's no precedent for a number one pound for pound fighter, which Ring Magazine had a number one, and a lot of them did. But number one, number two was a discussion, right? At the time, it was Lomachenko, Crawford. Canelo was getting some love too. When Lomachenko fought Teofimo Lopez. There's no precedent for a number one fighter pound for pound, or maybe even number 2, losing a fight and falling all the way out of the top 10. I've explained that before. I'm going to give a better statistical example as to why I think Lomachenko should be in the top 10 pound for pound, or why that's a decent argument in a minute. But that's number 1. Number 1 is, you can look, Bernard Hopkins loses to Jermaine Taylor twice. He's still on the pound for pound list. Roy Jones loses to Antonio Tarver, stays on the pound for pound list. Chocolatito loses to Sorong Vise a couple times, still on the pound for pound list. Canelo loses to Bivol, still on the pound for pound list. Pacquiao loses to Marquez and Bradley, stays on the pound for pound list. So there's precedent being set there. But also look at these stats, and I want you to keep in mind, these are CompuBox stats. I want you to keep in mind Lomachenko has fought 15 title fights in his 18-fight career. 15. That's the highest percentage of title fights to overall fights. He's also fought, and he's 13-2 in that run. He's also fought 7 straight top 10 opponents at lightweight. All 7 of his lightweight fights are against top 10 opponents at that time, using Ring Magazine ratings and other credible ratings. So he's fought 7 straight top 10 opponents at lightweight. He's 6-1 at lightweight, his only loss coming to Teofimo Lopez. So those stats show you right there that he's a guy fighting top competition. And that's why I want you to keep in mind that when we look at these CompuBox stats, we're comparing him to fighters statistically who aren't fighting the level of opposition that he's fighting, yet still he holds up when it comes to the stats. And this is why when I see people having Lomachenko in the top 10 pound for pound, they're giving a solid argument. They're giving the argument that this guy has fought throughout 3 weight classes, won legitimate belts in all 3 weight classes, consolidated belts in these weight classes, continues to fight top 10 opposition, has fought in 15 title fights and 18 fights. He's built a strong resume. We talk about building up equity, right? Because the list for the most part is what have you done for me lately, but guys stay on the list even if they're doing not doing great things lately, or if they lost, because they built up equity throughout their career. So when people scratch their head and say, how is it that Devin Haney has all the belts at 135, Lomachenko has none, and Lomachenko's on the list and Devin Haney isn't? It's the overall resume. It's the equity he's built up. I value the belts, which is why I tend to have Haney above Lomachenko, but I completely understand the other argument. It all depends on how much equity do you think Lomachenko has built up in his career. So when we look at stats like this, I want you to see, and this is him fighting tougher competition than his peers. He's number 1 in the sport in plus minus. And what plus minus tells us is how much punches were landed per round as opposed to how many punches were landed on him. And he's plus 18.6 per round. Plus minus per round. It's an incredible stat. Incredible stat. You look at other stats where he's top 10, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stats in which he's a top 10 statistically in boxing when it comes to CompuBox. Total connect percentage. He's landing 36.9% of total punches per round. Almost 4 out of 10 punches he throws, he's landing against good opposition. I mean, you can look at other names at the top. Benavidez doesn't have the competition that Lomachenko has yet. Lomachenko is right there. Jabs landed per round. Lomachenko is sitting there at number 8. He's landing 6.7 jabs per round. That's one thing that is underrated. He's landing jabs, not just power shots. He's not just flashiness. He's landing jabs. Jab connect percentage, 24.8. That's number 7 in boxing. And he's doing this against good competition. Look at the power connect percentage. He's landing almost half of his power shots. Fellas, he's landing almost half of his power shots. It's an incredible stat. And he's got much better competition on his resume than a Gervonta Davis, than a David Benavidez. than a Miguel Perchelt, other guys you're going to see on that top 10 list. The other one here is, let's see, where is it? Let's go further down. Let's go further down. And you can see all these stats on CompuBox. You have the top 10 stats in the sport throughout every single. The other one was opponent's total connect percentage landed, 18.3%. That's second, I believe, to only Dmitry Bivol and Shakur Stevenson. Incredible stat. Opponent power punch connect percentage is lowest. He's number 4, 25.3%. So these are just incredible stats that Lomachenko has, and he's doing it against good competition. Once again, I'll state, in his 18 fights, he's fought 15 title fights. At lightweight, 135, he's fought 7 straight top 10 guys. He's fighting good competition. So even when he has a loss to Teofimo Lopez, you can be a little bit forgiving and say, you know what? He's built up equity. I trust that he's going to continue to fight top competition throughout his career. And he's a 25-1 favorite this weekend, but Jermaine Ortiz is right on the outside of that top 10. Depending on who you ask, some have him at number 10. So you would keep that streak going. But to me, he's right on the outside of that. Right on the outside of that. I know Lomachenko has a better recent resume than Haney, but Haney has the belts, and that's fair. Like, that's the debate, right? That's the debate. Haney has the belts. Lomachenko has a better resume, but where I start to lose interest in people's arguments is when they try to argue that Haney may have the better resume, Lomachenko's resume is overrated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or when people say, Haney, yeah, he has all the belts, but the fighters he fought sucked. I start to lose interest in that. The debate is, Haney got the belts, no matter how he got them. It's fair to criticize that. It's fair to say that he has the weakest resume of any undisputed champion in the 4-belt era. That's fair, but he does have the belts, and Lomachenko is beltless. He's beltless, and the belts do matter. And if they matter, if we're consistently out there saying that they matter, and we do it for a reason because we want these guys to strive to be champions and strive to be the best that they can possibly be, instead of just fighting low risk, high reward fights, we have to value the belts. That's my argument. But I do understand the equity built up argument. I've always prepared for disappointment, but then these next 2 fights is fire. And I agree with you. At least we have that, right? Lomachenko's back. We'll get an idea of where he's at, because remember, he is getting up there in age. He is. He is past his prime. The career arc goes like this. He is on that downward trend. So we'll see where he's at. And I'll talk more about this. I'm going to go in depth about this fight tomorrow because I love it. I love it. Jojo Diaz and Zepeda. Love that fight. And I'm doing a short form video on Zepeda right now that hopefully I'll have up tonight, because I love Zepeda as a fighter. Just do. I hope, I hope he's going to win this fight Saturday night. I hope he cracks into the top 10 at 135. Love watching Zepeda fight. And to me, I'll show up win or lose, because at least he's going to give me the entertainment value. And I know he wants to fight the top competition. So we'll see. But that's a great fight. And then Bivol versus Zerto the next weekend. That's an intriguing matchup as well. And I don't care about Jake Paul. I just don't. Jake Paul, YouTube sensation, just don't care. I don't care. Anderson Silva, don't care. Anderson Silva looks very old. He could possibly be in there to take a dive. I don't know. I just don't care. Just don't care about it. He proves who you fight matters. That's right. Pound for pound list is always very biased and subjective. And that's the thing, Hawker. It's for the people overly criticizing other people's pound for pound list, because I've learned that it's tough to do. The reason I started doing a pound for pound list is I was criticizing other pound for pound people's pound for pound list. And then I was trying to hammer down my pound for pound list. And I had like 22 fighters I wanted to put in my top 12. And I'm like, now I get it. This is difficult. It's difficult to do. So The answer I have to people that have an issue with these pound for pound lists is it's easy. Duh, do your own. Do your own pound for pound list and put it out there. Be fully transparent. Put it out there. Because I see people constantly criticize, oh, how do you not have Devin Haney on your top 10 pound for pound list? Oh, how do you not have this guy? How is Stephen Fulton not on your top 10 pound for pound list? I hear these people criticizing other people's pound for don't have a pound for pound list. I haven't seen it. I've gone back and tried to look at them. They don't have them. I'm loving this pound for pound talk. Appreciate the super chat, Remy. Yeah, and pound for pound's a fun thing to do. That's why. Like every sport, like everybody tries to hammer home their top 10 players of all time. It's natural. It's a natural human trait to want to do these things, to compare and contrast one guy to another guy, no matter what the sizes are, no matter what time they played in their career. Bill Russell to Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaq to Olajuwon, LeBron to Jordan, Jordan to Kobe, etc., etc., etc. Tom Brady to Dan Marino, Joe Montana to Aaron Rodgers. We constantly want to compare and contrast. It's a natural thing, and that's why pound for pound has legs. That's why pound for pound list became a list, because people just couldn't control themselves. They said, we can't just have a pound for pound guy. We have to list. We got to do a list. It's natural. It's natural, but what I'm saying is just go make your own list. Go make your own list. Some boxers I like to follow and watch, and some guys I don't care to see. That's the bottom line, and that is the bottom line. Bud Crawford is past his prime now also. He is the same age as Lomachenko, and that's the thing. Bud is well past his prime. Just go back and watch Bud 2014, 2015. Bud's not the same fighter in 2021 that he was back then. And now we're 2022, pushing 2023. Fighters naturally age. Athletes naturally age. We all naturally slow down in everything that we do. I have trouble showing my dad how to copy and paste on a computer. We all slow down. We all struggle to keep up with the young bucks and the times, and it's natural. And these fighters stay in their prime for a very limited amount of time. And then they're stuck trying to catch up with the younger fighters, trying to keep the younger fighters off of them. It's a natural process in boxing, right? The issue is a lot of these fighters aren't getting the fights that they're supposed to be getting in their prime. They're not getting them till they're out of their prime, so we're improperly judging these fighters because the power brokers are not giving us these fights at the time that we're supposed to be getting these fights. They're failing us as boxing fans. They're failing us. I like the Jake Paul Anderson Silva fight. Jake Paul has stepped up much faster in his career than almost all the pro boxers do. This guy has never had a single amateur fight, and all that's fair. But here's the thing, Hawker, and I'm trying to explain this to people, is yes, every pro boxer early on in their career fights the cans, right? The guy 2-5, 2-11, 4-13. I get that. And fighting maybe a Nate Robinson or an Anderson Silva may be on par with those guys. The issue is you're putting it behind an added paywall. When you're watching these young prospects, it's not behind the added paywall. So when you slap pay-per-view on something, it was my issue with the Deontay Wilder, Robert Helenius fight. When you slap pay-per-view on it, then it becomes something else. It becomes... It goes from a stay busy fight that he was entitled to because he had 3 rough fights. I said he needed to catch a body. I said he was entitled to catching a body. But when you slap pay-per-view on it, it becomes something else. And when you sell the pay-per-view as something that it's not a stay busy fight, not a catch a body fight, even matchup, Robert Helenius is a literal Viking. He's fighting a Viking. No, I'm out. And it's the same thing with Jake Paul. You put that behind a paywall, and I don't care if the paywall is $9.99. I'm not paying for it. It's not interesting to me. Even if we do a Spence versus Bud, it wouldn't be in their prime. And I think, I think people were disingenuous in 2022 when they said they weren't interested in Bud versus Errol anymore. I'm not interested in Errol versus Bud. I wasn't buying it, but now I'm starting to buy it. Now when people say, can these guys just drop the belts and go to 154? And if they fight, then do it there. That way, these younger fighters at 147 can have shots at each other. That way, we can mandate these fights, and they can be for championship fights. And in order to lure these guys into fighting each other, guys like Boots and Virgil, instead of this constant Errol versus Crawford talk, and keeping this division locked from the top down, give Stanionis his shot, etc., etc. Get Keith Thurman the hell out of here. Have those guys just move to 154 and do their own little circuit there. And we don't care anymore. Don't fight for belts at 154 either. Just go off and do your own little thing. I think that's where a lot of people are gravitating towards now. Drop the belts. Let's move on. And if you fight, then fine. We'll deal with it then. But right now, we don't care anymore. I think that's where a lot of people are gravitating towards the past week, if I'm judging this right. On that note, man, I got to get out of here. Appreciate y'all swinging through. I'll be back at the same time tomorrow for more boxing talk, and we're going to be talking a lot about William the Mexican Murder Hornet Zepeda versus Jojo Diaz, a tough vet. Appreciate y'all swinging through. God bless. Peace.